What's up, everybody? My name is JD from JDTechGear, and today we have a little bit of a project today. I recently did a case review on this case right here, the FSP CMT120, and I reviewed this case, and it was lackluster, to put it at best, for me. So I'm going to be switching over to the Anidees AI-05S, which is, I believe, an $80 case, but you can usually find it maybe around on sale for around $55 to $60, which makes it a great value. Now, this came out in last year, around maybe March or April or something like that. So it's a fairly recent case. It's almost a year old. It's still pretty young in my opinion, but Anidees sent this over, so I'm going to be swapping out my PC from here to here. This is the Iron Winter build that I did in the Raid Max Sigma originally. So I wanted to take you guys on this little bit of a PC project and swapping over this hardware over to this case. So it's going to be exciting, it's going to be fun, and we're going to be building in the Anidees AI-05S. So first I got to get everything out of this case, and I got to get this case unboxed. So first I'm going to get all this stuff out of here, and then we're going to unbox this and put everything in here and go through that process. So let's get into the video, and remember, if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this one, or if I have piqued your interest, consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this one. Alright, let's do this. So the components in this case are about to pop out. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Shazam! And I'm pretty sure that was a pretty choppy cut. So yeah, it's probably not that smooth of a transition, but I tried. Yeah, so it's out. I got everything out, and it was very frustrating to build in that case for the first time, but getting it all out was a lot easier because I knew how to work with the case. So if I did it the first time, I now learned how the case worked, and I got it back out. And it was a very confusing case. I really don't recommend it. But now we're going to move on to the Anidees AI-15S, and we're also going to introduce the Arctic Freezer Cooler that we're going to be slapping on top of this thing, which is going to be pretty cool. They sent it over, and they sent over a white version and a green version. I'm pretty sure the white version is going to look pretty cool with this one, so let's check it out. Okay, it's now a different night. I had a lot of stuff going on throughout the day and I had to work. So now we're on to a different night and we're continuing the build. Also, we have a special shout out for Arctic for providing this Freezer Esports 133 cooler. I believe that's what it's called. Quite the name, but seriously, a very cool looking cooler, and it comes in a red trim, a blue trim, and a green trim as well, along with the white, of course. And it's got this really super dense fin design, and it clears the RAM slots on this board. And I believe the distance between the RAM slots and the CPU is a fixed distance among all motherboards. I don't know if it's the same for different sizes of boards, but I believe for all ATX boards, this should clear the gap of coming into contact with the DIMM slot. So that's pretty cool. I'm really liking the cooler a lot. I love the black design, and I love the fan. It's actually really quiet, but when it's at full speed, it's pretty loud, but it pushes a lot of air. So I think this thing's packing a lot of cooling potential. So I can't wait to use it. And yeah, so let's get on with the build, and let's get this case unboxed and start this build. And I also have Jack on the chair over here. It's kind of upside down, just chilling on the chair. So yeah, you can't see him though. So this is the first time I'm looking at the case, actually. So let's get a good look at this. This is not tempered glass, and I believe this is an $80 case at retail, but I've been seeing this going for like $55, $60, so I believe at that price point, it's a pretty good deal. It's pretty wide. It's actually wider than most ATX cases that I've seen, so that's pretty cool. Got a lot of space in there. I hope you have a decent amount of space for cable management. We'll see. This thing actually comes with 3 fans. That's a lot more than I was expecting. So that's really cool. They have a bunch of fan mounting options at the top here, and you got a magnetic you got a magnetic dust filter up here, and as you can see here, if you can see, there's a whole bunch of fan options. As you can probably see, the slots at the top, and a pretty beefy front I/O. There's no USB Type-C port, but there is 2 USB 2.0 and 2 USB 3.0 ports. And yeah, and it's got a fan controller in there too, so that's really cool. I really like that. So let's get this case undone and let's get building in it. It's okay to have acrylic. I mean, if you're paying $55 or $60, and even though there are $60 cases that do have tempered glass, this is a pretty spacious ATX case. So if you're planning on, you know, using potentially more parts in here, or you know, like a massive tower cooler or maybe a larger cooler, you're gonna have more size compatibility. So there's that, so that you don't have the tempered glass. And acrylic is just fine in certain situations, and I really don't mind acrylic. I do, of course, prefer tempered glass, but this did come out, I think, last April, so almost a year ago. We're getting there. Not quite there just yet, but getting there. All the parts seem to be machined relatively well. Okay, we got quite a decent amount of space in the back here, actually. As you can see here, I can flip my thumb sideways and fit it inside the depth between the panel over here and the inner wall. So that's pretty good, actually. And you got a lot of options over here. So we have two hard drive trays over here, which can support 3.5-inch drives or SSDs, and you also have two additional drives over here, and then you also have two drive trays on the top of the power supply basement over here. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that, but they're there. And you can probably support the 2.5-inch SSD drives or the 3.5-inch HDD drives. So that's cool. We also got a fan hub in the back, and we also have a couple of Velcro straps, which is nice. As far as the front panel goes, it is closed off in the front, but you do have a pretty decent side ventilation gap here, maybe an inch to an inch and a half almost. So that is actually pretty decent for airflow. Especially for most components, that's going to be just fine unless you have very high thermal output components. That might be a bit of an issue just from looking at it. Of course, I would have to test that to actually validate that, but just kind of theorizing about it, I think you'd be able to run most modern parts in here just fine. Now, if you're running like one of the old FX chips with the 8-core Vishera, you know, like 5.1 gigahertz, and then you got like an R9 390 in there, yeah, it might get a little toasty. And you got a magnetic dust filter in the front here. And let's go ahead and just show you guys the front over here. This is actually a pretty nice case for first impressions. There's not really any space for a radiator here, for a front mounted radiator. And we also have a tray for the power supply dust filter. That's really nice. A lot of cases, even at an $80 price mark, can sometimes have the dust filter that kind of just holds in with the metal tabs, which for $80 shouldn't be the case. So having the slide out filter should be pretty standard, but it can go a lot more often without it. So I'm happy to see that this is there. And all the parts are in a cardboard box. That's nice to see. We have cable cutouts, and we'll probably go through cable cutouts in a little bit. Can diagnose a case pretty quickly now versus when I first started building PCs. You can just tell when a case has thought in it. And this looks like it has a decent amount of thought in it. Looks like they got it hooked up to the fan hub here, and I believe the fan hub is connected via Molex connector, which is a little sad. I would prefer SATA connection. I just do not like Molex connection. Yeah, so you could fit a 280 millimeter radiator up over here, but not going any lower than the power supply basement. So their diagram has a radiator extended to 240 or 280 millimeters. So nothing below the power supply shroud. So that would make sense because the cutout would not fit that. And you can fit a 240, 280 millimeter on the top and a 120 or 140 on the back. So that's cool. Remember, install your I/O plate last, because that will definitely give you a headache. I don't have any of the screws labeled, which is kind of sad. The Raid Max Sigma is an equivalently priced, well, I think that's just one of the best price to performance cases I've seen all year. Yeah, that had all the packets and assorted screws in different packets that were labeled, so that was really nice. I like when they do that, because, you know, especially for first-time builders and they have all the screws mixed up into one package, I feel like it's a little overwhelming, and sometimes you just, how are you supposed to know which screw is which unless you just go through each screw seeing which one fits properly? I mean, when I had the Fantex Entho Pro, that was the first PC I built, and it was inside that case, and there was a whole entire assortment box that was all labeled, and it made it a much better experience. And you know, it's not a huge, massive thing to do, but you know, it's simple enough that it creates a lasting impression of what kind of tier of quality the company wants to bring to you and the kind of build experience that they want you to have when you're building your PC, and especially for me when I was building my first PC. So I really appreciated that they had that, and I always appreciate whenever a company goes out of their way to label the screws on there. Like I said, a pretty minimal thing, but honestly, it goes a lot further. Now, why are these screws not screwing in? Am I missing something here? The heck? Is it supposed to be these? That seems to tighten down. Regular motherboard screws aren't tightening down. Oh man, really? So that would have been beneficial, because even like me, where I've built in plenty of cases before, I know what motherboard screws look like, and the regular motherboard screws actually don't look like the regular motherboard screws. They look like a completely different screw, and they don't work in this case. Oh, come on. I don't know where that went. I really don't care. So whenever something isn't standardized, it should especially be labeled. So that is a little disappointing. It's really the details that make a case so great and well thought out. But that's okay. It's just first impressions. I think I got all of them. All right. I'm gonna mount one of these, the top drive. So you just have a tray, and you got the pins on the inside. I know you're probably not gonna be able to see that from there, but maybe you guys will know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I'm guessing you just line this up, and then line these holes up, and then just bend the frame of the tray around the mounting pin holes of the drive tray. I mean, of the hard drive itself. So the little trays on the front of the power supply basement right here are really on there. So I'm going to have to use a screwdriver to undo it, even though it is a thumb screw. It's alright. It's cool. And I'm guessing, you can definitely do this with a 3.5 inch drive. Although there aren't many 3.5 inch drives that I want to really show off. SSDs, on the other hand, can look really clean on the front. Especially the Kingston drives, they look really clean and really simple. And it's just black and gray. And I actually do like them. I think they're pretty appealing. It's not super gamery. It's just looks finished. So I like that. It's not just like a cheap sticker thrown on there. Of course, that's just an aesthetic preference, but still, I like showing it off, so if I get the chance to, I'm going to. Oh, no way, it's backwards. I thought, man, it's backwards. Alright, it's backwards. It's nothing more frustrating, especially when you actively think about something. You're like, yeah, I totally mounted that the right way. Since I made a mistake last time, I'm just going to line it up and make sure. Yep, that's the right way. I am going to put in the GPU. Now the GPU... Oh, come on now. Don't do this to me. Alright, so the GPU... You have to undo these thumb screws, which again are pretty tight. And then you unscrew them like that, put the GPU in, close them, and then screw in the corresponding screws. So that's what I'm about to do. A lot of cases have been implementing this, I've been noticing, I don't know what for. I guess because you have a better angle of using a screwdriver. Put in the GPU. All right, now I'm gonna put in the power supply. All right, so the power supply fits in just fine. You have to cram the cables a little bit. It's nothing too crazy, but this power supply isn't that large. It's a 650 EVGA B series, I think, the B series. Anyways, you don't need that large of a power supply to supply 650 watts. Now, if you're using a 750 or an 850, those get pretty beefy. And unfortunately, I can't say that I would feel confident that those would fit just fine in this case. As it is already, the cables are pushing up quite a bit against the hard drive trays. Yes, it looks like you can remove the hard drive tray, so I do admire that quite a bit. Alright, so I'm going to get the fans installed, and I'm also going to do all the cable management and then discuss the cable management options. And yeah, we'll get this thing turned on and see how it looks. Alright, I finished building inside this case. I think I got all the cables managed as best as I could. Obviously, I don't have everything like zip tied and all neatly organized back here, but I'm just going to go over some of the cable routing options and kind of like my final thoughts on the case. So, it was pretty easy to route everything, I believe. As you can see back here, there is quite a bit of space. Like I was saying before, you could fit like the width of my thumb between the frame and the inner wall over here, this where the back panel would sit. And there wasn't really any tricky connections except for where you would plug in the motherboard connector and all the other connectors over there. So I appreciate what they're trying to do over here and just have this angled cutout over here, but it makes it really difficult over here. Like, I've seen other cases do this better, and they have more of a gap in between here, between where the angled cutout is and where the motherboard is, simply because everything's under high tension if you have it that close together where the cutout is and where the motherboard is. So it's a little bit under high tension, a little bit more tension than I would prefer it to be. And yeah, if that gap was a little bit better, or just have regular old cutouts with some rubber grommets, I think I would have preferred that a lot more. And also, all the cutouts up top here worked really well. Even for the CPU connector over here, it's a little bit tricky because I'll flip around the case. I don't know if you'll be able to see the cutouts, because the thing is there's this lip over here where the back panel sits. So the cutouts are kind of like underneath it over right here, but you can pass cables through. So it can be a little tricky to get the cables through, but it's nothing too terrible. It was easy to work with. And the CPU connector is a little bit tricky because you do have to snake it through that lip over here as well. But luckily you can see where you're trying to aim the CPU connector, because as you can see here, we have the cutouts in the frame over here, so you can see right through that, and you can aim where the pin is going and be able to line that up. Everything else was pretty much easy. You have cable cutouts for the fans over here, and it could fit Molex connectors if your fans have Molex connectors through the sides over here and everything. So overall, it is a fairly well built case in my opinion. Would it be worth $80? No, not in my opinion. But like I said earlier in the video, you can find it for like $55 to $60, and I think that's a pretty good value. Even though it is an acrylic window and you don't have tempered glass, although I think this would suit a lot better with tempered glass. It gives you a lot of fan mounting options and things like that. It gives you plenty of room inside and gives you good storage options as well, which I really, really like. And it's overall a pretty well open case, and having a good amount of cable cutouts is also really nice. And also the front I/O is pretty nice as well. There's a white rim LED that goes around the power and the reset button. And you also have 4 USB ports, 2 of those which are USB 2.0 and the other 2 are USB 3.0. So yeah, overall a pretty solid case. I was pretty happy with the amount of room that you got in the back over here a little, so you can stuff all that junk in the trunk and be able to squish these cables down. I'll be able to organize that. But I'm gonna end this video off by saying this is a fairly decent case. I would make it a little bit less expensive, maybe put in some rubber grommets, change some of the design layouts. It's a pretty standard case. I think they could implement it more just to make it a little bit more fun. Of course, you have a brushed aluminum look in the front. You could do something cool like maybe a dark sandalwood or something like that, or maybe even a wood pattern. I really want to see some sort of new patterns on cases this year for 2018. Granted, this is a year old, of course. Well, coming up at almost a year old in April, which is still a couple months away. But still, that's just some feedback on what I think of this case and what can be improved with it. Otherwise, it's still a pretty nice case. Everything's manufactured really well. You got plenty of screw assortments, although I think the screws should be assorted better, in my opinion. Also, the feet are pretty low profile. I don't know if you can see, but there's not much of a gap over here. So it's very tight for airflow going to your power supply. So that could be an issue if you're sitting on carpet or something like that. Otherwise, if it's on a hard surface, I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, overall, that's my building experience with this case and kind of just a project to take you guys on. And I'm going to end the video with some B-roll and maybe some music. So that'll pretty much wrap it up for today. If you guys want to see more videos like this where we do maybe projects and stuff like this and make it a little bit more interesting rather than a straight up review, let me know. Also, if you want to see more videos like this in general, consider subscribing if you're new here and checking out the rest of the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I will of course catch you in the next one.